Yes, so the session's name for today is Decoding Bhagavad Gita. So decoding Bhagavad Gita is, so when there is some secret message, when there is something very difficult to understand, or when something is very confidential, so how do we unlock it? How do we open the code? How do we solve that mystery? Is what the topic of today is, decoding Bhagavad Gita. So we are not going to read Bhagavad Gita today. Basically, it's kind of a glimpse. It's kind of a just a small view of what Bhagavad Gita is all about and what is the importance of learning Bhagavad Gita in our life. Why we should, all of us should read Bhagavad Gita. What is the necessity? So we'll take this up today in our last session. So as you can see on the slide that God has created innumerable species, which consists of birds, plants, and human beings, and thousands of varieties of species Lord has created. So you would have seen on this screen, there is some kind of a comparative that I have done between humans and animals. So trees, birds, animals, and humans all are living beings, and they also share some common traits, common qualities. Animals as well as humans, they eat. So humans are also eating and animals are eating. And animals are sleeping, human beings also sleep. Humans defend themselves from the enemies, and even animals are trying to defend themselves, protect themselves from the enemies. Animals are reproducing, and even human beings are reproducing. So you may think that fine, humans and animals have some similarity. But what is the reason? What is the need for, giving our attention to a comparative between animals and humans? Where humans are, where animals are? What is the reason for, having a comparison? So have you ever seen nowadays in today's world how humans have become greedy? How we are fighting on very, very petty issues? In fact, sometimes I feel animals are better. Why? Because animals, once he's had his share of food, the moment the stomach of the animal is full, no matter how much it is left, it will move on. It will not eat the entire thing or try to stuff inside his storeroom. And on the comparative, how do humans behave? They will eat, they will pack, they will pack for the family, they will pack for the neighbors, then they will pack for the entire year. So there might be people who are hungry, and on the contrary, there are some people who are just hoarding things, they are hoarding food. Animals never do like that. Are we not worse than animals? Animals will kill each other only because they are hungry. But humans will kill just because for the sake of money or power. It is just for their own greed that they will kill. So, although humans are considered to be the most developed species, yet I think they behave, I think, worse than animals. So, what should actually be the ideal situation? Why? What do you think should humans be different from animals? Of course, there are four things like eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But there's definitely something more superior. That is why most advanced species. So let's find out. Nita, sorry, I cut you in between.
No, no, no. Please.
Okay. So what actually distinguishes between human being and animal? What is the difference actually? Here we just spoke what was common between animals and humans. Now we're going to talk about what is difference between humans and animals. So human beings are actually not meant for fighting like cats and dogs. Just now I gave you some examples of how human beings are constantly fighting over petty things. So human beings are not meant for fighting like cats and dogs. Humans are given intelligence which are not given to any other living being. Animals, animals as well as humans both have consciousness, but humans have superior consciousness. So let's find out what is this superior consciousness. So all living beings actually ask questions. We feel that only humans ask questions because we definitely have that pride that we are very, very superior. But even animals have questions because they are very, very particular. Where will they rest and where will they sleep? They're very particular of the shelter, how they will maintain their family, what they're going to eat. Every animal has got different kind of food, and they also have the intelligence to find out where the food is available, whether it is birds or whether it is any kind of animal. Then they also know, even a small tiny insect, they also know how to find a partner for mating. When they want to reproduce, when they want to have sexual this thing, then also they know how to find a partner. I don't know how many of you watch National Geographic channels like these. If you see those channels, it is amazing. You will understand how even animals have that sense of how to where to find food and where to sleep and where to find a partner. They'll go to such extremes to attract partner of the opposite gender. So they have that kind of sense. Then how to protect themselves and their family. So all these things even humans have, right? They also know how to protect. They also know how to find a partner. They also know how to eat, where to eat, what to eat, where to live. All these things humans also know. So till now everything is common. But now in the next step, humans go one step higher, where other species don't. And that is, humans ask question, who am I? Why do I exist? Where did I come from? And where will I go after I die? Who created me? Who created this entire universe? So, so these kind of questions differentiates between human beings and animals. Play your video. Okay. Otherwise, if you look at it, fine, it just freezes in between.
Sorry, didn't.
Nothing in your hand. So otherwise, if you look at it, we behave quite in a similar way as animals do. Apart from this particular thing, questioning, otherwise there is absolutely no difference between humans and animals. We are doing exactly what animals are doing. So out of so many human beings that are existing, very few actually ask why we are suffering. Very few people inquire and ask who they are, why they are suffering, and why they are put into this material world. Nita, your video. Hare Krishna, Nita. Nita, can you hear me? actually.
Sorry, we had to.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, out of so many people who are present in this material world and who are suffering, actually, if you see, very few people will be inquiring about, uh, they'll be questioning about who they are and why they are suffering and what is the reason for being in this material world, who's God, all these questions which we have been discussing for all these 5 days. So many, very, very few people will be questioning about all these things. So the point is that unless the person asks these questions to himself, unless he questions his suffering, unless he realizes that he doesn't want suffering but wants to make a solution to all these sufferings, till then, till then, he is not to be considered a perfect human being. So, when this sort of inquiry is awakened in one's mind, then that makes human beings superior to other living beings. Otherwise, honestly speaking, there is absolutely no difference between animals and human beings. As you have seen, that how we are so similar to animals. So as we were discussing when we were in session, first and second, that how temporary we are, our existence, because our body is material and only soul is eternal and soul is only permanent. So basically, nothing is going to last forever. So when we come into this world, what we are doing, we when we are hungry, we are eating. When we are feeling sleepy, we sleep. But these are, of course, these are very important things in our life, sleep and eating. And of course, these are very important things. But what more? What next? What is more valuable than eating and sleeping? So, and this kind of question leads to the question that what is the ultimate purpose of living? Because we know that in this material world, nothing lasts forever. So why is it that we long to live and live forever? We always have that longing. We don't want to die. We know that this is temporary. Everybody knows that we are going to die one day, but we don't want to face it. We don't want to accept that fact. And believe me, those people who are very, very healthy, they are fit, absolutely. They are round the clock working on their health and fitness and eating very well, and they're very strong and fit. Even they have to die. So, as we had learned earlier, that of course this longing to live forever is there because our soul is eternal. We feel full of knowledge, as we read that the soul is eternal, soul is blissful, soul is full of knowledge. So it is because of those qualities of the soul that we have that longing to live forever, because the soul is living forever. So even material body also wants to live forever. But the combination is not good. The combination, we are a permanent soul, we are an eternal soul who is actually trapped in a impermanent or trapped in a temporary body. So the entire combination is not correct. Temporary body, temporary soul would have been fine, or permanent soul, permanent body would have been fine. But here the combination is material body, which is temporary, and we have a soul which is permanent. So the mathematics is not correct. So this desire to live forever actually comes from the soul, which is eternal, and which does not belong to this material world. However, if we understand all these things, we will realize that if we inquire, if we somehow try to understand that why I'm suffering, why my soul is trapped in this temporary body, and when we start inquiring, actually, that is the unique privilege of human being. That is the privilege given only to human beings because of their higher consciousness, because of their higher intelligence level. We have evolved from thousands of years after living into variety of species of birds and animals. We have actually evolved and we have come to this position. So let us not this position go waste. Let us grab hold on to this position and make the best use of the deal. So as we had learned yesterday that we understood about religion, right? That what is religion? We understood that religion means the law of God. Religion has been made by Lord, and we are supposed, because we are parts of the Lord, our duty is that we should render service to the Lord, and we should try to understand who Lord, we should try to love him, and finally we should try to go back to the permanent world, not stay here in this temporary world. That actually should be the main goal. Now, in order to follow that main goal, in order to follow the law of God, in order to follow the religion, the actual religion, there are certain things which we should follow. And these things are called four regulative principles. And these regulative principles, once we start following them, it will help us in progressing in our spiritual life. It brings purity in our consciousness. Following these principles only is a starting step which will differentiate between us and animals. So let's look at the slide. Actually, this was the last slide I had added, Neeta. So I'll just explain the figures accordingly. I didn't write below them. So kindly explain on my behalf. So these are four regulative principles, and the difference between animals and human being is that an animal has intelligence and therefore is not expected to follow these four regulative principles. And since we have been given intelligence by the Lord, so we are expected to follow these principles. Lord expects us that we should at least follow these principles so that we can be differentiated from animals. So the first principle, regulative principle, is that no meat eating. So we will not kill any animal, and meat eating will also include eggs, of course. Eggs and any kind of animal is not allowed. Second is no intoxication. No wine, beer, no alcohol is allowed. Third is no gambling. So when we come to gambling, is even stock market is also part of gambling. And the last is no illicit relationships. So what I mean by illicit relationship, the other things I'm sure are very clear. But when it comes to illicit relationship, means that uh, sex between husband and wife is allowed, but sexual relationship outside marriage is illicit. So if a man or a woman is married, he's allowed to have sexual relationship with his wife or husband. But being married, if you form a relationship with any other woman or any other man, that is a sin. So that also comes under four regulative principles. So we can go into more details when we advance into future classes. So this is basically the basics that what I have given, the four regulative principles. And in ISKCON, we very strictly follow these principles. They're called the four pillars of Dharma. So for the time being, we must remember that these four regulative principles is what actually, as a starting stone, starting step, differentiates us between us and animals. Animals will have sexual relationship with anybody, right? If we also do something like that, we are as good as an animal. We are as good as a dog or a cat. So these are the principles which have to be remembered. Let's move on. So we learned in second lesson of reincarnation that after living in the bodies of so many different kinds of birds and animals, we have finally reached this human species, human form of life. So imagine how precious this life of ours is. And if we do not take care of this human life, then we might fall again in animal species. So that is the biggest fear we all should have. So what should we do? So let me share with you a very interesting story. So it's a long story. I'll try to make it very short because we do not have so much of time. So I will give you a story of a person called Parikshit Maharaj. Nita, you know how to spell Parikshit? Yeah. So Parikshit Maharaj was the son of Abhimanyu in Mahabharata and grandson of Arjun. He was a great devotee of the Lord. And once, while he was in a forest, he happened to be very thirsty, and he saw a hut, and he entered into that hut and saw a saint who was meditating. He tried to call out the saint and ask for water, but the saint was in meditation, and he did not respond. So as it's just a matter of luck, and actually it is said that it is also uh, pastime or the leela of the Lord, that he picked up a dead snake and put it on the shoulder of that saint. And by the time before this rishi or the saint could open his eyes, his son came and he saw what this king is doing to his father, and he cursed him. And he said that within 7 days, one snake bird will come and bite you and you will die. So now, in earlier days, curse means curse. If somebody has cursed you, it will definitely come true. And by that time, that saint opened his eyes, and he, instead of getting angry at the king, he was very angry at his son, that why did you curse? He is a very noble king, and why did you curse him? Anyways, nothing could be done. Parikshit Maharaj was a very great king, and he was a great human being, and he accepted his fate. And he left all his kingdom because he knew that he just had 7 days in his life. And he left everything and went in search of the truth. And for 7 days, he heard about the glories of the Lord by Sukadev Goswami. I don't know how will you spell Nita. Sukha, Sukadev Goswami. Yeah. And whatever Sukadev Goswami told Parikshit Maharaj is actually Srimad Bhagavatam. So, seventh day, Parikshit Maharaj died and he went straight to the Supreme Lord. He went straight back to Golok. So that's the image you just saw of Parikshit Maharaj listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is said that he did not have water, he did not have food for those 7 days. He spent all his concentration in listening to the glories of the Lord. Now, why the reason I'm discussing over here is the point is not about listening. Of course, we have this problem of listening, but what I'm trying to explain here is that Parikshit Maharaj understood that yes, what is important. If suppose today you or I get to know that within 7 days we are going to die, we will make so much of effort to save ourselves. But he did not make any such effort to save himself. All he did was how to spend his last days in remembering the Lord, how to spend last days in knowing who that Supreme Lord is. And that is the perfection of life. So we may live our life very intelligently, but without a spiritual goal, our life is a waste. So the human life, the purpose of human life is to realize God and to establish the relationship with God. So let us, my dear friends, understand our main goal in life. Otherwise, despite all scientific and social development, we will continue eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. No matter how much science develops, no much how much social development happens, no matter what progress happen, we will continue eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, how do we understand what is our goal in life and how do we make our life successful as a human being? So, to achieve that goal, we have to get hooked on to Bhagavad Gita. So, to prove our human life successful, we need to gain knowledge and not an ordinary knowledge like a BA or an MBA. I'm not talking about the knowledge of this material world. We need to get spiritual knowledge, which comes from reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and similar Vedic scriptures. So, as it is quite evident from the slide that Vedic literature or Bhagavad Gita is not meant for any other species, it is not meant for animals, it is definitely made for human beings because of their higher intelligence. But one thing that we must understand here is, which many people do not know, that Bhagavad Gita is not a book of Hindus. Many people do not know because generally Bhagavad Gita is associated with Hindus. But if you read Bhagavad Gita, you will realize that it is not a religious book. It does not talk about religion. Bhagavad Gita gives you the way to live. It begins actually, the Bhagavad Gita begins when, Arjun is confused whether he should fight or not fight, whether he should uh, fight with his relatives or just renounce everything and go to the forest. So Krishna guides him, and finally, in the end, he leaves the decision making in the hand of Arjun. So Krishna empowers Arjun and tells him that he is a way more powerful than he is going through at present time. I mean, he might think that, okay, he doesn't have strength, he's a very weak person. But Krishna assures him that he's spiritual, he's a soul, as a soul, he's a very strong person. And no confusion, your confusions, your challenges, your problems are smaller than the strength of your soul. And this is not what Krishna is telling Arjun. This is what Krishna is trying to inform all of us through Bhagavad Gita. He tells each one of us who reads Bhagavad Gita that all of us have confusions like Arjun. All of us have struggles. All of us have challenges in our life, smaller or bigger, but they are small in compared to the strength of your soul. You are all stronger than the problems of your life. We all have problems. And I'm sure at your level, with whatever disability, your problems would be much, much more than maybe I have problems. But all of you have to remember that the strength of your soul is much more than the problems. And this is what Krishna assures. And Krishna also assures something else in the last verse. And I don't know how many of you remember, but I'll be just doing a recap in the last slide of what Krishna assures us. If you read Bhagavad Gita, if you try to follow Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and by taking Krishna's name, by reading and understanding Bhagavad Gita, we receive Krishna's attention. Okay, so Krishna actually is protecting everybody entirely. He even protects those who do not believe in him, who do not even believe in God. How? Because the food they get, the shelter they get, everything is being provided by God, isn't it? So even Krishna is providing in those people. He protects the animals, he provides shelter and food even for the animals and birds, and he also provides them with basic requirements to live. But when it comes to his devotees, now who are devotees? Devotees are the people who accept that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and my only shelter is Krishna. My own I from my heart and my from my body I surrender to Krishna. Those are devotees. So when Krishna sees that you are a devotee, then he personally comes and takes charge of his devotees. Personally comes and takes care of his devotees. He says that whoever worships me with devotion, I give them what they lack and I preserve what they have. Which means that I give them what they lack. Means suppose you don't have something that Krishna is going to provide. And if you have something, he is going to preserve it. It's such a beautiful promise which Krishna is giving us. But therefore, those who worship me with devotion, I give them what they lack and preserve what they have. And Krishna is always there to protect his devotees. He personally looks after into his devotees. Now, imagine if there are two children in a family, although the father is equal to both of them. Yet, believe me or not, a child who is listening to the father, who is obeying whatever father needs, he will always be a little closer to the father's heart, isn't it? Although father is equal to both the children. Similarly, Krishna is our father, and when we become his devotees, when we start remembering him by chanting, by reading Bhagavad Gita, and following these regulative principles, then we become very special. And Krishna takes charge of our life personally. He might not be visible to us, but when you start realizing him, when you start worshipping Krishna, you will start feeling that presence in his life, in your life. So that's the end of our session, day 6, and also the end of our journey of Discover Yourself. I'll just spotlight Nita. Hare Krishna.